we're going to talk about it more. That of races is quite important in the international area. I have my guest with me, John Askovlich, political analyst, joining us from all the way New York. Thank you so much for joining us, John. It is another important yet hectic situation that is ongoing at the moment. Last night we were trying to find out whether the president of Iran has died or not, and as the morning light has occurred, we found out that he indeed passed away with his foreign minister as well. The statements are coming up, and at the night actually the statements were coming as well. So what would you say about the latest situation? Then we're going to dive in a little bit more.
It is, for the people of Iran, a sad day for them. It was so interesting watching yesterday the various media reports from throughout the world, and with such technology that exists throughout the world, and yet everyone was unable to categorically and with precision find out what happened and find out what happened quickly. And there were stories out there that turned out to not be correct. But it was interesting to watch that disconnect between just how technologically advanced we all are. But in the end, there's sometimes there are events that technology will just have to wait and we find out. There's a lot of commercial, economic, and political hysteria at the moment. The good news is we have 50 days under the Iranian constitution. There are 50 days until there needs to be another election, and that's going to be a very important 50 days.
John, about this situation, of course, we are going to continue talking about it in the upcoming days and hours, and I know that statements are coming. But what I wonder about the U.S. perspective is that when last night I was on air as well, around about like 10 hours ago, I was talking about it, and the only statement that came out from the U.S. then was that, yes, we know that a helicopter crash has happened, and we are following through, and that was nothing else. Well, otherwise, the other countries has made much more heartfelt situations and statements. We know that the conflict between Iran and U.S. are not going to let us have any heartfelt condolences towards Iran. But what would you say about the diplomacy that is going to occur between Iran and the United States after the passing away of Ebrahim Raisi, the president?
It's an immense challenge in the United States because of the fact that we're in a political season, an election season. And so if the Biden-Harris administration were to come out and with I'll use the word heartfelt, or a what the Iranian government and other governments would perceive as a sincere note of condolence, it's challenging because immediately the Biden-Harris administration is going to be attacked by people that oppose them, particularly the Republicans and primarily former President Trump. And so it's a delicate balance for them to try to do what diplomatic norms require, but at the same time not potentially hurt themselves, because any statement with respect to Iran in the media cycle is going to come back to connect to Israel. Israel connects to Gaza. Gaza connects to young people protesting in the United States, which goes to certain states in the United States that are very important to President Biden to win re-election. So it's a really ugly and delicate circle that the administration has to navigate.
Well, about that, we also are going to talk about it, of course, but I do wonder, what would you say about the word policy after this incident occurred? And we know that Turkiye has initiated the search and rescue, and the aNews has found the first pieces of the wreckage. And what would you say about this as a perspective that is analyzing the Turkish stance in this situation?
It was an interesting moment when when it was announced that Turkiye was sending, a helicopter, and that the Iranian government had reached out. That is one of the, and maybe the word benefit is wrong here, but it's one of the results of when governments have connectivity with one another. And sometimes uh, you those connectivities, in when there isn't a problem, there's a lot of criticism. But then when there is something that happens, and because of that relationship, a government can deliver, can help immediately. That's where you get some good political leverage, and that's where you also may be able to use that leverage, use that connectivity as the next stages unfold. And for Turkey, which has retained relationships with countries that the EU would prefer not have relations, or the United States, and that. But when there is something like this, the flag of Turkey is going to be on that helicopter, and it's going to be Turkey military people that went in to try to help. And I think the Iranian government will certainly remember that.
It is indeed an interesting moment. Of course, it is kind of devastation, but in the light of the devastation, we are seeing a cooperation between the countries. And I think also it is important to actually elaborate a situation that consistently helps the diplomacy to go better and better. So what would you say about the future of Iran after this? Because even before we had the president's death announcement, Iran has stated that had he died, it wouldn't be any problem because we are going to continue as it is. Do you think it is going to be able to occur?
That's why I went to that 50 days. The next 50 days are going to be so important, and it's wonderful for the global perspective that the Iranian constitution has that provision, because it allows, whether it's oil markets that have spiked and now are settling again, it allows politicians to basically take a breath. And if you look at the next 50 days, what have we got happening? We've got the European Union elections. We have the G7 summit. We have the Ukrainian peace summit. Depending on when they start the 50-day countdown, you may have the Republican National Convention as a part of that. You've got the NATO summit in Washington. So there are a lot of really important events that are going to take place where the Iranian government can use those 50 days to take its time, and to also see how the international community reacts, and maybe the signals that are sent. Then, of course, you have Gaza. For Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel, this is going to be a really interesting one. And I'm guessing he's going to get a lot of pressure from those countries that are supporting him, because you would generally say that right now Iran would be at an inflection point that you may not want to upset. So don't give the hardliners an opportunity to squash any softening that could be on the horizon, but at the same time try to build up the what could be a new generation, and not provide ammunition for the hardliners to squash them. So for Prime Minister Netanyahu, he has to take a look. Does he now go in as the plan and just crush Rafah and continue with their process when you've got this sort of vacuum in Iran? And then how might Iran respond? Would it respond as the now deceased president would respond, or is it going to be the supreme leader and the acting vice president taking direction that are going to respond? So it also may cause Israel to postpone some things as they also look at this 50-day clock and how they can influence what's happening in Iran.
And for this situation, I would also like to ask you about a follow-up, because you said it is quite important. We have G20 coming up. We have a UN Security Council that is going to happen. And we do not have a president for Iran during this situation. So do you think that inside Iran, the situation is going to be resolved soon and they are going to declare someone as president, or are they going to wait a little?
Well, there is, under the Constitution, the vice president is the acting president, and then they need to have the elections in 50 days. So my guess is you're going to have that continuity. The government needs to show that, one, they're still in control. Two, they haven't been weakened, and three, in some respects, that they're stronger. That the death of one president, the death of a foreign minister, brings together those various political perspectives. And so no one should bet against Iran. No one should take advantage of Iran. And that'll be a message to Israel. Don't think that now is a good time to start striking Iranian nuclear weapons facilities or doing anything with respect to the Houthis or doing anything with respect to Hezbollah. Don't think that we can't make another decision to launch rockets and missiles and drones at Israel or at the friends of Israel. So it's a delicate time, but as I said, my hope will be that everyone, whether it's at the White House or in Brussels at the European Commission, or it's in Riyadh, the Kingdom of Saudi, but that every office of president, head of state, head of government starts a clock, and it's a 50-day clock, and they just watch that clock, don't overreact, don't. And I think what would be especially dangerous is for governments to say, hey, look, you got rid of this guy who was reportedly responsible for selling drones to Russia that could then kill Ukrainians, or supporting Houthis, supporting Hezbollah. So look, this guy's gone. Now's your opportunity to change the system. Now's your opportunity, get rid of the Ayatollah, get rid of the supreme leader, and let's let young people take control. That would be a real mistake. People just need to watch what's happening in Iran. Intelligence services from all over the world are going to be trying to stir things up, as that's what they do. But I think that the smart play is going to be to watch, and then there is going to be a moment, and that is going to be the president's funeral and the foreign minister's funeral, and which heads of state and heads of government attend that event. That's going to be very telling too.
John, thank you so much. It was quite insightful, and I know that we are going to talk about it in the upcoming days and hours, because it is going to be something that we are going to remember as a marker in the history as well. Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Thank you for having me.